after 5:15. Christie, do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you all for being here. We have a couple items on the agenda. They're all nominations. And first, I will call up Senate nomination 1, Marcy Scoggins to the Charter School Authorizer Board, effective immediately, ending August 30th, 2025. The subcommittee chaired by Senator Johnson did advise and consent. And I'll yield for any questions on this nomination for Senator Johnson to answer, if there are any. Okay. The motion by Senator Hobson is we do advise and consent on Senate nomination 1. Everybody ready to vote? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. That will be reported to the floor. I'll call up Senate nomination 8, Candace Denise Robbins to the Charter School Authorizer Board for the unexpired 3-year term effective May 12th, 2022. Wow. And ending August 31st, 2023, in replacing Mark Baker. Okay, you've heard the motion by Senator Johnson. We take up Senate nominations 8 and 9 in block. The same person to fill the term of Mark Baker, as well as the term beginning September 1, 2023 to August. Maybe not, I think so. To the 2026, Senator Johnson's subcommittee did advise and consent on these nominations. Anybody have any questions? Guess we need to have a vote on the motion, take them up in block. All in favor, say aye. Okay. Senator Norwood. We're taking up nominations 8 and 9 in block. That's the motion. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay. Back on the nominations. Any questions for Senator Johnson? Okay. Senator Johnson. Okay, you've heard the motion by Senator Johnson that we do advise and consent. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Call up Senate nomination 89, Kara Elizabeth Powell to serve on the State Board of Education for the 3rd District, the remainder of a 9-year term beginning March 9, 2023, ending June 30th, 2030. Any questions for Senator Johnson? They did advise and consent. Senator Wiggins.
Senator Johnson, because I was not on the subcommittee, since she's being nominated to the State Board of Education, during the subcommittee hearing, were there questions asked or discussion had about how the board's process, if she's going on the board, in their process of selecting a state superintendent of education?
That question did not come up. And unlike the other hearing we had 15 minutes with Ms. Powell, and that question did not come up.
I think it's clear that there are a number of members who have an issue with what was done. Do you feel like, based on what you and the subcommittee heard, that if she's on the board, it either won't happen again or at least will be discussed in a better way?
I can't say that any one person may have that effect or not on the board. I believe that we could statutorily make changes to that process based on the way that she answered questions in our subcommittee. I believe that she would offer a different opinion than one is currently on the board, but how that would affect search committee or selecting the next State Board of Ed, I cannot answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for Senator Johnson? Senator Norwood.
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to offer motion.
Does anybody have any questions before? What's your motion, Senator Norwood?
My motion be to table this nomination.
Okay. Let me ask if there's any questions for Senator Johnson before we take up that motion. Okay, no questions. Okay. You've heard the motion by Senator Norwood that we table the nomination of Kara Powell. Any discussion on that motion? Any questions for Senator Norwood?
I have a question.
You have a question for Senator Norwood? You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Norwood, by tabling this nomination, would this just continue to be an open seat if we vote yea or nay, or will she be an interim on this board? How would that work?
Now, that wouldn't be a question for me. I think it should be a question for the attorney, because I don't know if this is an open seat now or if it's currently occupied.
Senator McClendon, counsel advises me that if this motion is granted or wins, then this nomination is dead after we Sonny die, and then the seat will be vacant, and the governor could reappoint this person or any other person, I believe. Isn't that correct, Sam? Okay. Unless it's brought up in some other committee hearing, yes.
So for the remainder, would this seat be open, or could the governor appoint her and she be on this board until we reconvene next year and vote on her?
I think regardless of if this motion prevails, or if there's a vote and her nomination does not survive, does not gain enough votes, the nomination of the seat is vacant, and the governor can then reappoint or appoint any person to that vacant position. And Senator McClendon, do you have anything further before I recognize Senator Wiggins? Senator Wiggins?
Thank you. This is for Senator Norwood. It surprises me there's a motion to table. What's the reason for the motion? On what basis is that motion being brought forth?
Well, I mean, what I looked at the applicant or the nominee's qualification. I had some questions regarding that, basically regarding whether this individual would be qualified, if you will, to serve on K-12 board, setting policy for K-12 throughout the state of Mississippi.
And well, in reviewing the peer report and the information, it looks like there's usually we have something that says, the statute is this, and the nominee doesn't fit the statute requirements, but I don't see that here. Is that what you're talking about?
No. No.
So it's just more of a personal opinion.
Well, yeah, this is my opinion based on looking at the academic achievement that of an individual that will be nominated to provide leadership for K-12 policy in the state of Mississippi. Based on my experience serving on a local school board, based on the information I received from some other educators throughout the state.
So, okay, which is certainly part of the nomination and process and confirmation process, which is a subjective decision, I guess. But you're saying based on that, not based on the law that is set out. Is that correct?
No,
That is correct?
no, I'm saying based on the information I have in front of me, yes.
Right, but
I mean, this is not to say, I'm not questioning what the law says. I mean, the law we can put forth individuals that would meet the law, the standards of the law, but in terms, still the individual has to be qualified based on the position that they're being nominated to serve in. And based on what I'm looking at here,
Right. There's a different, I'm not belaboring the point, but there's a difference between meeting the qualifications as sat out in the law versus one's own individual decisions of whether they're qualified or not. But the law as set forth, there's no violation of that. Okay.
Senator, what I think,
Thank,
trying to maybe include what Senator Wiggins saying, what you're saying is legally she meets the statutory requirements to sit on the State Board of Education, but based, in your opinion, she doesn't meet the work and educational requirements and other requirements that you believe in your mind would make her a good fit to sit on the Board of Education. Is that correct?
absolutely.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Bryan?
According to the peer committee report, the nominee has owned a consulting firm specializing in education since February of 2023, and she has from time to time been employed by the state of Tennessee or some of its entities in that capacity. The statute says that no member shall be actively engaged in the educational profession except those who are specifically mentioned. So at best, it is an open question as to whether she is engaged in the educational profession. It seems to me, if you take those words in the actual dictionary meaning, she is engaged in the educational profession because she owns a consulting firm specializing in education. The peer committee said that her meeting the statutory qualifications depended upon whether the committee decided that she was or was not engaged in the educational profession.
Thank you, Senator Bryan. And Senator Johnson, in your subcommittee, you had this peer report. Did you make a determination based or answer that question when you looked into it?
We requested that and were told that it does not violate
Who did you request the opinion from?
from peer.
From
I mean,
peer?
from Ethics Commission.
Okay, the Ethics Commission, okay. Okay, Senator Bryan?
I can't hear well. Who did they request an opinion from?
Brian, I misspoke the first time. Ethics Commission, we asked.
The Ethics Commission.
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't want to belabor this point either, but we've not contracted out our ability to make these decisions with the Ethics Commission. So,
All right, we're back on the motion to table. Did anybody have any further questions for Senator Norwood? Okay, Senator McClendon?
Thank you. Senator Norwood, do you think a registered Tennessee lobbyist for charter schools would disqualify her, or should we go on and vote instead of tabling this? Because the third sentence on her resume says registered as a Tennessee lobbyist. Now, all I hear while I'm down here is DeSoto County is a Memphis suburb. So she helps with Memphis charter schools. So is that where we're going with this? We want Memphis charter schools to be on Mississippi Board of Education?
I don't.
All right, I will let the committee be aware. I had a question on that lobbyist information in the peer report. I spoke to the governor's office, and what the governor's office indicated was that she worked for a nonprofit wherein everyone in that nonprofit was registered as a lobbyist, but they had indicated to me that she didn't do any lobbying herself. But
She is registered Tennessee lobbyist.
that is the information I have is correct, yes.
And if the charter schools of Memphis register the Tennessee legislature to give money to outside states for them to be able to go to Tennessee schools. Is that something we would want on the Mississippi Board of Education?
Well, I think that's an answer that this committee is here to answer. Okay. All right. All right. I think we're back on the motion. Senator Norwood, do you want to close on your motion? Are you ready to vote? Senator Hill has a question, I believe. Do you want to speak on the nomination? You want to have a question?
Just basically speak on the nomination as a comment to compare.
Okay, let me ask Senator Hill, just make sure there's no more questions before we get to closing on the nomination. Okay. Okay, Senator Wiggins.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask, because I think that's a valuable question, is who do we want on the on the State Board of Education? And just to reiterate my point that I made earlier, what's happened this session is it's become clear that there's a certain falling down of processes in the area of picking a superintendent, which begs the question of other things. So, I think it does go into what more do we want? So is there guidance from the chair as to what we want on the school board?
I think at this point, this nomination is up before the committee, and I think the opinion that you have is relevant, and however you vote is however you vote.
That's a very good political answer.
But I will
Thank
say
you.
this, I will echo your concern about the way the selection process has went. And, but that's a function of what the legislature can do. We can lay out what the process could be for a future superintendent down the road. So I believe that's probably going to be looked at or studied over the summer in the off session. And then visited maybe again next session if there is anything that the Education Committee would like to look at next session. Okay, let me go recognize Senator Hill to close on the nomination or speak on the nomination.
The comment that I would make is that charter schools are not unique to Tennessee. As many of you know, Mississippi also has charter schools. We passed charter schools some years ago under Tate Reeves' administration. This body and this committee in the past, if you were sitting on the committee when I was, we worked with charter school consultants to try to draft the best charter school law that we could draft. I think if one of those consultants that we use to help draft charter school legislation or work with charter schools wanted to sit on a board of education, whether it be in Mississippi or another state, I don't understand why that would disqualify them from serving on a board of education if they were a consultant to pass charter school legislation, because Mississippi, as does Tennessee, has passed charter school legislation. That's just a comment.
Thank you, Senator Hill. Anybody else to close before I recognize Senator Norwood? Senator Jordan?
I agree with what Senator Norwood says. Really, public schools should have people on it that deal with public schools. I know they say charter schools are public schools, but we're talking about 140 districts, and a person should be enough good people out there interested in public schools. You got two different situations in here, in my opinion. You cannot run with the dog and the fox at the same time. They're two different species. So therefore, let's get somebody who is for public schools and let's move on. I agree with Senator Norwood's motion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Senator Norwood. I think to echo what Senator Jordan just said, it's important to remember that charter schools are public schools. And so, Senator Norwood, I'll recognize you to close on your motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say, this is not some motion that was taken or made lightly, because I do agree, and I think the governor has a right to appoint, but we as a body also have a right to this. So I respectfully reaffirm my motion to table.
All right. You heard the motion to table. Everybody ready to vote? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. All right. The last nomination on the agenda, I'm going to skip tonight. I want to give the Department of Education opportunity to be present before this committee. And so at this point in time, I'm going to recognize Senator Blunt for motion. Okay, you've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.